Good morning, lords, ladies and gentlemen, especially students. We're redefining equality, diversity, and inclusion in the information age. To redefine equality, diversity, and inclusion in the information age, we need to examine how information technology can and needs to facilitate the achievement of diversity in the era of the global information age and the information economy. Yeah, it's over there. It's over there. It's on that screen. It won't go on both, will it? No, okay. WWW, you know as the World Wide Web. Equality, diversion, and inclusion were not concerns at the beginning of the information age. The internet began as a bespoke system for the US military and research universities. When the World Wide Web, which first appeared in 1989, allowed others to access the internet, people felt that the internet had the power to transform society and to cut across existing inequalities. But the digital divide appeared. By the mid-90s, awareness of a digital divide emerged, that there were haves and have-nots in digital access and use, and that the divide essentially mirrored existing divides. Information technology would not automatically transform societies. It had and has the potential to do so in ways that didn't exist before. For instance, giving voice to the voiceless, providing enormous libraries to students, libraries of information to students who live many miles distant from any library. But to do so, the digital divide has to be breached. The internet is not a silver bullet in and of itself for achieving equality, diversity, and inclusion. It has to be consciously molded and used in a way that it becomes a tool to meet these goals. Yet there are interesting linkages between technology diversity in the business community that could result in information technology promoting diversity. Both information technology and diversity used to be seen as not-for-profit aspects of a business with no real tangible value to enterprise growth. Information technology used to be kept off in the back room, air-conditioned behind closed doors. It was a utility, not linked to any profit center in the business. In the same way, most business leaders failed to see any connection between diversity and profit and growth. But now, both information technology and diversity are rightfully regarded as keystones of innovation and business growth. The two together are regarded as necessary success factors for the information age. It's now accepted without question that information technology is a driver of innovation and business growth. And diversity, too, has come to be accepted as essential to innovation and business growth. Many analysts of innovation stress that a homogeneous talent pool cannot be innovative. Diversity is essential to innovation. We need to leverage the talents of all. The workforce of any country as a whole cannot be competitive unless it leverages the talents of men, women, and underrepresented minorities. Microsoft, of course, one of the world's largest corporations, has declared that it sees diversity and inclusion as a business imperative, a source of strength and competition in the global world. Information and technology and diversity together give an edge. The link between diversity and information technology is together they give business an important edge in the information economy that pervades more and more of the world's businesses with each passing day. Technology is an important enabler, but diversity is necessary to ensure the economic growth that comes from a fully employed workforce. There are many kinds of information technology jobs in the information economy and what is called the knowledge society. The vast majority of employment and opportunity for entrepreneurship in the future involves technology-related jobs. The three main categories of these jobs are those in the information technology itself, working for the Googles or the Facebooks or the infectious media or Avectos, but also the jobs as information technology professionals and technicians of any level in other companies that are not in the information technology sector, but just other jobs in general that employ information technology skills. And I'm sure that you're aware that with each passing day, it becomes harder and harder to find a job that does not require information technology skills. For everything from the front counter at Greg's to lab technicians and store clerks and customer service, everything requires information technology. So we see that these jobs are in the IT industry, IT professions, and IT skills. And that good jobs require information skills. Nearly all good jobs, and no matter what occupation, will require some digital literacy and information processing skills. Young people have to acquire these skills to weather the uncertainties of a rapidly changing labor market in the information age. It is essential that women and minorities equip themselves with these skills in order to be competitive and become part of the information age. So if we're looking at the global diversity scorecard with regard to business economic growth, what grade would we give them? Although the intellectual understanding and commitment is often there, for the most part, the delivery has not taken place. If we take a look at some of the largest global information technology firms, we see a lack of diversity in the technology workplace, from recruitment to the composition of the workforce to management and leadership and membership on boards. Recently, in August of this year, we saw these headlines. Apple is the latest technology company to reveal the diversity of its workforce. I would say the lack of diversity of its workforce. The company is mostly male, white, and Asian. And in this study, which came out last August, virtually all of the major global information technology firms, their workforces were shown to lack diversity. For the first time this year, many people are starting to question the massive gender and racial ethnic gap among the giants of the information technology industry. There is little diversity in the workforce as a whole, and even less at management and leadership level. Why does the workforce lack diversity? Well, one reason is, quite strikingly, IT firms tend to hire people who look like they do. white and Asian men fit the stereotypical image of an engineer or an entrepreneur, and they're more likely to get hired or promoted or funded. So what does an engineer look like? Is it the guy on the left that we think of as an engineer, or is this a leading British woman engineer, of whom there are many, but yet that is not the picture that we often have, and it is not the picture of who mostly gets hired, regardless of credentials. Because the jobs require technical skills, recruiters think that they're operating a system based on merit, a meritocratic system. But the results of IT recruiting also look more like a mirrocracy, a mirrorocracy. That's Bill Gates when he was a young man. Those hired resemble most those who were already there. And those who are already there do not reflect the diversity and inclusion concept. It's a culture that operates largely by networking and referrals. For this to change requires awareness and appreciation of diversity in the global markets. This phenomenon is also self-perpetuating as a result of a rather narrow culture of most of the major technology companies, their lack of work-life balance and mentoring. Many minorities and women are actually leaving the information technology workforce. Particularly with regard to women, people talk about the concept of the leaky pipeline, that you find fewer and fewer women at each stage of the educational and career level with regard to science and technology. And particularly with dropping levels at numbers at each level of education and then employment in science and technology. In almost all developed countries of the world, the number of women studying computer science has been falling, and falling rather dramatically since the 80s. Despite equal or sometimes female-dominant computer and mobile device use, especially in social media by young people, teenage girls still are much less likely to consider a technology-related career or to take post-secondary technology classes. This is despite the fact that girls and women do quite well by examining their standard results in science, technology, engineering, mathematics subjects. In the UK, the girls last outperform boys on half of the 12 GCSE STEM subjects. And girls are getting better grades than boys on physics A levels. A stereotypical mentality prevails, however, that women are genetically predetermined to be uninterested in information technology, that women can't do science. With regard to underrepresented minorities, it is often said that there are few minorities working in information technology because there aren't enough skilled minorities to hire. Figures from the UK dispute the "we can't find any to hire" response. Students with a BAME, Black, Asian, Minority, Ethnic background, accounted for 19% of UK students of STEM-related subjects last year, which is much larger than their percentage in the total population. And the numbers were highest among Black Africans and Indians. With regard to BAME and STEM, and I'm sure you all have the acronyms down pat by now, the University of East London is doing quite well. It is good to see that UEL ranks high among UK universities in the percentage of BAME students studying STEM-related subjects. It is the fourth highest among UK universities in that field. And with regard to the number of BAME women studying STEM, they exceed the number of BAME men. And the particularly large group of women minorities in STEM are particularly large in Black, African, and Caribbean groups. In addition, BAME women had a higher percentage of working in the STEM, in the science, education, technology, labor force than men, and than BAME men, and than their white counterparts. Contrasting BAME women working in science, engineering, and technology to white women in the UK, it's 8.2% of all BAME women working in these fields, as opposed to 5.1% among white women in the UK. And this figure has been increasing each year for the last 5 years. But yet what we see is, despite a high level of education among underrepresented minorities, adults from ethnic minority backgrounds are more likely to be educated to a higher standard than their white British counterparts, and are significantly more likely to hold a degree and less likely to have no qualifications at all. But their educational attainment has failed to translate into workplace employment, with ethnic minorities more likely to be left unemployed or underemployed, working in low-paid jobs because of, I suppose, what we can call inequalities in employment. What about looking at the leadership level of in information technology, information age firms? With regard to women in the management level, the recent showcasing of women appointed to high-level positions in the largest of technology companies might lead us to think that they are doing very well. However, these high publicity appointments have done little to improve the overall situation of women in the information technology workforce. Technology is embedded in society and has to be seen in its social context. Among other things, it needs to recognize the life situations of its employees. One case in point of that is Marissa Mayer, who was appointed CEO of Yahoo in 2012. Shortly after she was appointed, she banned telecommuting. She banned working from home. And this, of course, made life very difficult for many of the women employees. This was in California, where there are many hours spent on commuting. It meant that they were adding several hours to their already long work day, and involved heavy costs for childcare for many. But again, shortly after she was appointed, Marissa Mayer herself became pregnant. So her solution was to build a private nursery with a nanny next to her office so that she could take care of childcare while she was at work. But this obviously was not a solution that she was going to offer to her workers. Childcare is an enormous workplace issue in many places. It can run to £5,000 a year per child in the UK, in places where consuls do not provide it, and that is often. In the US, it's many, many times that. Women bear children for society. They should not have to pay the economic costs for society as a whole. An interesting take on this has come recently from more information technology firms in the US. Contrary to the concept of work-life balance, many employers expect women to put the workforce before family. Apple and Facebook recently announced that they would pay for women workers to store and freeze their eggs in order to put their fertility on hold. While this appears to be a perk, many see it as another way for companies to avoid the societal issue of work-life balance. The question of promotion and advancement, once hired, also affects the careers of women and minorities in the information age. A rather startling take on this came last month when Satya Nadella, the new CEO of Microsoft, at a conference dedicated to advancing women in the male-dominated technology issue, advised women not to ask for a raise, that they should simply believe in karma and trust the system, and it would come about. Well, Nadella has followed this advice, and he makes £12 million a year, but the average woman in the UK workforce earns 20% less than the man in a comparable job. And perhaps she should ask for a raise, in addition to trusting her karma. The situation of women and minority groups on boards. With regard to the number of female directors in the UK, this is going up. The Cranfield FTSE 100 report for this year showed major improvement in the number of female directors in FTSE 100 companies. It's up to 21% that have female directors, and only 2 that have all male boards. And 10 years ago, it was 20 or 20% of the country for whom the boards were all males. But if you look at a larger group of the FTSE 250 companies, there are still 20% of them for whom the boards are all male. And at the level of executive directorships, the number of women is quite low. With regard to the situation of minorities, it has not been improving as it has for women in general. As the situation of minority diversity on boards has actually been regressing. More than half of the FTSE 100 boards this year had no minorities on their board, and 2/3 had no full-time minority executive directors. And overall, only 6% of management positions were held by Black, Asian, and minority ethnics in 2012. And this figure has been increasing only very marginally over the years since 2012. What is to be done? Some suggestions. We start with the premise that success and innovation in the global information age take inclusion of all varieties of persons that exist in the world. Changes need to be made in the workplace and education system that include changes in mindsets that see talent exist globally in all countries, colors, religions, genders, regardless of disabilities, scholarships for young men and women from poorer backgrounds to enter science and technology, mentoring programs that start at an early age, more cooperation between universities, the private sector, and government in developing programs that increase access for men and women of all backgrounds to go into new fields and to support them along their career path so that social factors do not cause them to drop out. Specifically, what do we ask of business? To increase the ethnic and gender diversity in all hiring, especially among senior staff and directors on board, to work arduously to reduce BAME unemployment, especially among youth, to consider seriously the promotion and retention of women and minority groups in the workforce, to consider seriously the work-life balance of all staff, especially through flexible work hours and workplace location, to conduct self-examination to uncover hidden biases in recruitment, workplace culture, and promotion. An information economy that reflects the diversity of global society would go a long way towards fostering innovation and strengthen economic growth for all. Thank you.